Hello, Kaiwan. Uh, how did you find this event of Vertical Studio?
Okay, so for the vertical studio, I see two aspects. One is the vertical nature, which means that all the classes are mixed up. So it's the junior most and the senior most working, which has its kind of goods and not so goods. So that is one thing, but it's a good idea at a basic level. But the second, I think, which is the most productive part of the vertical studio, is the intensity of working in like 2.5, 3 days. And I think that is very important. So that model where kind of a large group works for 2.5, 3 days with completely new external people and with a site which is practically new for them, it produces a certain kind of an intensity, which produces a certain kind of a work, which produces a certain kind of a learning. That is very important. In the nature of the vertical studio, there is a bit of a thing. There are students who are absolutely fresh, and there are students who are fairly senior. So where does the balance come in? Where do they draw a balance? It's a bit of a tricky affair. One can accept the tricky affair and say, yes, this is the problem, we go ahead and do it. Or one can say that should we restrict the studio to 2, 3 and 4 years. And first years remain as observers. They come for the workshop, but they are more observers. Fifth years are anyways practically not around. So these are the two things about the vertical studio.
Now, being a theoretician, you have been invited here. We found that yes, we have a person who can talk about these things a little differently. And once we sent a brief to you, how did you approach to that thing?
Very frankly, the brief was very simple. In a sense, it was a very basic brief. That any inner city, if you just said inner city and how do you approach an inner city problem, it's a very basic brief. So whether it's Nasik, whether it's Bombay, obviously the scales change, histories change, local context changes. But it's a basic thing, there is a certain situation which we see in many cities and one will have to respond. More than a person, because I have dealt with that context in my own personal research work, which is sort of the native town, which you can also call the inner city of Bombay. For me, it was more a question, how will I lead the students? Lead the students, I mean, how will I take the students ahead in this kind of a, where will I begin to explain my students what are the problems, what are the issues. So I think most of the time, for me, it was that is the, very frankly, in that sense, I have to say that I looked at this more from a teacher perspective, from an educator perspective, than as a theorist. Because as a theorist, I somehow know how to deal with it as far as I'm concerned. I have certain methods, etc. in place. I think about them, whatever. So those come in my teaching. So they translate into teaching for me. So for me, it was, how do I translate some of my ideas into teaching, and how will I take the group that I work with in this path of inquiry? Because obviously the importance of teaching is to leave some space for the students to do their own things also. So to give students a certain kind of a guideline and in which they operate. So I'm not the person who really will sit with the student till they finish their project. For me, it is to give a student certain kind of frameworks to work. So for me, that was the thing. I have a certain kind of a theoretical approach or a thinking. I have a certain way of teaching, and one flows into the other. How will I translate it to a completely new bunch of students that I will.
So there was a change in attitude, you say, that there are certain changes in attitude, the way you were looking at it now, the way you look at some other places, the way you
a little bit yes, but not much, very frankly, because I'll tell you why. If I was doing this project for the next 6 months, there would be a change.
Okay.
See, which has also been part of my own work, that Bombay is a city where I have worked, but I have lived in that city. So I have a certain way of engaging with the city. If I go to a new town, if I go to a new city, I also have to find my own ways of engaging. And that way 2 days is a very short period for that engagement. So I can only think at an abstract level.
Okay.
So I bring my past experiences, put them in an abstract level, and which is why I look forward to the students to bring in the details.
Okay.
So that was the whole point, that like I kept asking for students to show me certain things, for students to take me around, talk to me. So I was kind of trying to sort of judge, what do they know and what do I know, and how do I marry the two. If I lived here for another 6 months, for one semester, then maybe I would have started seeing this in a different way than I would have seen some of the other cities that I have studied.
That means different lenses could have come out.
Different
there.
lenses
Yeah.
could have come out.
Yeah.
Could have come out. But I need that time for engagement.
Yes. So how was your experience with the students? They're from hierarchy within these 3 days, because
Yeah.
as it was a very small schedule,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
everything has to be done with the students.
Right, right. See, very frankly, I think that also has to do with the group of students that I had. But I think what was very good, that there was a focused bunch in the group. I also made it very clear that I only want to work with a focused bunch. I am not. If it was regular teaching, I will try to pull most of the students, the good, the average, everybody into the process. When I'm come here as a guest, to pull up every student is not my job. Yeah. In a minimum period of time, I want to share or exchange the maximum with students who are interested. So I made it very clear that those who are interested stay. Those who are not interested, just don't come. Yeah. So that was a more kind of an administrative way of dealing with it. But what that did is that there was clearly a bunch of students who were interested.
It's like Patrick did his vocabulary. You forget people
Yeah.
who are of no use.
No, I don't mean of no use, but it's their decision not
Yeah.
to be of use, or
Yes.
it's their decision that they don't want to participate. Fine, I'm not going to force you. I'm not going to waste my time in forcing you.
Yes.
So because see what happened once the bunch of students who were focused, I did not have to push them to work.
Yes.
I did not have to push them to organize.
Yes.
So I could spend most of my interaction time or meeting time with them in discussing ideas. So it was productive, because if they do I can't do site work for them.
Yes.
They have to do the site work. Yeah. So if they do site work, if they do certain thinking, then I can give a certain kind of a response, certain kind of a thinking to the material that they have get. So it is also like I am doing a division of labor, that okay, I cannot do site work the way you guys can do 15 of your 10 of your 20 of your, but I have certain experience, I have certain knowledge which I can bring to you right now. Yeah. And then we exchange that, which obviously it means that they also have their ideas, and for me then as a teacher is to evaluate their ideas, is to show them the direction for their ideas. So there is a teacher's role that I have to play, there is a scholar's role that I have to play, but it was a working equation that we have to develop, and luckily we could develop it.
Now the final one. What is your message to all our audience?
Which could be to any student. Actually, it's not only to students of one college or another. That sometimes working on these projects is a certain direction towards a human understanding of what we are dealing with in our everyday life, in our professional life. So we had a humanities teacher who, once she finished I think we had humanities till the 4th year. So once she finished that, I think 7th semester, she would say, okay, now all of you are humans at the end of this course. But I tell my students when they sort of enter in the first year that, I don't care if you become a good architect or a bad architect. But if you're not a good human being, then that is a big problem. So I think the whole idea that education has a certain, I don't mean a moral value system, but in a certain way a thinking value system, which is very, very important. And I think a project like an inner city project is a lot to do with understanding human values, is a lot to do with understanding politics, is a lot to do with understanding history. Not history as something that is in the past, but history as something that is so much fought over and discussed over. So I think it is, if students can start thinking for themselves, I think it's the biggest achievement. A good architect, a bad architect, a successful architect, a not successful architect, one who makes money, one who doesn't make money, I think all these are useless questions or characters in a sense. But if you are a person who can think independently, who can do something independently, and who can engage work and life in a certain way, that I think is very, very important for me personally.
So it was a really nice talking to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
providing your idea.
Yeah, I enjoyed myself.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.